All right, so we're gonna get started. So hi everyone, my name is Emna Garyani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Veamly. And the reason why I wanted to do this webinar is because I've had several years of experience of running remote teams, and I meet a lot of people around the Bay Area telling me like, how do you guys do it? And they see some of our stuff and they get super excited. So I decided to share it with much more with a bigger audience, sorry. So as I said, I'm a founder. So I'm currently founder of a company called Veamly. I'll tell you in a little bit what we do. But I'm also had experience helping launch companies through the Founder Institute globally. And I also mentor and advise quite a few startups. So let me get started by telling you who we are as Veamly. So Veamly today automatically prioritizes conversation across your different tools. So we take your inbound conversations like Slack and Jira and other tools, and we bring them in one personalized, prioritized feed where you can quickly act on. So if anybody has questions about what we do, please feel free to reach out or to ask them at the end of this webinar. But most importantly, I want to tell you that we are a global team across 4 different time zones here in the US, East Coast and West Coast, but also Asia, South Korea, and Africa, Tunisia. So today we're going to talk about 3 main things. What are the must-haves for you to be able to successfully run your remote teams? What are the practices we have put in place that help us do so? And how do we engage with our team globally? Finally, I'll leave some room for questions, if any. So let me get started by the must-haves. I want to first share something is that I'm not going to talk about, the things that everybody usually sees in bigger companies like company retreats or, things that are usually super costly. I want to show you today that with almost no cost or no cost at all, you can still have the best practices in place and run successfully your team. So one thing that's super important when we talk about running remote teams is people ask these questions like, how do you make sure that the culture grows with it? How do you make sure that you're passing the culture of the company along to everybody, wherever they are, wherever they are working? Well, first thing to keep in mind that culture is a branding exercise. It has to be everywhere. It's not something you write and then say, hey, we're hiring somebody on the other side of the world, and this is our culture, and this is how you're supposed to behave, or this is how you're supposed to think when you're part of our company. So it really has to be in every aspect of your company, in every message you send out, in every communication, in every decision you make. And what do I mean by branding exercise? Well, you need to have a clear vision, mission, and core values. And I know it sounds cliche because a lot of people say this, you read it online everywhere, but what most people do though, they do make the effort, to sit down and do a 2-day retreat, sometimes with a coach or with a specialist, like who will help them define all these things. And then they'll put them somewhere and never look at them again. Well, what we are saying is that, yes, it's important to define them, but to live by them on a daily basis. And how do we do that? It's in our language, in our communication, but also by, as the CEO or as the manager of the company, you have to always remind everyone of where you're going, why you're doing what you're doing, and put your culture everywhere, even in your office. Your core values, like print them out and put them on the walls, put them on your Slack channels in the form of emojis, engage the conversation on a regular basis on them. The secret sauce, though, however, is what we like to call our happiness officer. We call her also our people operation manager. It's a very key, important role. When you first started as a startup, a lot of people told us, but as a startup, you're supposed to be scrappy, and people are used to have so much turnover, and we don't believe in that. We believe that it has to start day one. And that's actually the most important role that helps you really scale your team, scale your culture and your practices remotely. So her role is really there to make sure we enforce, execute everything I'm going to tell you today. So the other aspect that's a must-have is documentation. It's good to talk about things, to have meetings, to put them on Slack, but we really see power in documentation. We use Confluence and we put everything in it. We used Drive for a while, and now we're moving the rest of it all in Confluence. But it's very important to have how-to's documents to go back to, but also to share with your team whenever like they want to understand, so, like if something is not clear about a particular program you're running in the company or a particular way of doing things. And most importantly, it's incredibly essential for onboarding. When you bring new people on and as you're scaling, that's the best way to make sure everybody's on track wherever they are, whether they're working next to you in the office, or in our case, we're talking about remote, obviously, so across the globe. So with documentation comes process, and I'm gonna show you exactly what we did there. Process is super important because it makes people feel secure, right? We know like the natural bias, like, yeah, I mean, we're adults, especially when people start in smaller companies, like we know that sometimes processes are not very clear, or sometimes processes are put there and they don't evolve and they don't iterate, or you're supposed to iterate on the process as you grow as a company. So for us, what we did is we established the process that we wanted for Veamly when it came to people. So part of the things when I started talking, I said culture is branding. One of the things we do is, yeah, we call our teammates Veamlers, right? And everything is about the Veamler. What's the Veamler journey? What's the Veamler process? What's the Veamler, talent development program? So I'm gonna show you what we put in place for our company. So we tackle every major aspect here, as you can see on this screen. So recruitment has its own steps, like what is it that we wanna see and what is it that we wanna vet for at that point, right? So it starts from there. So when you're hiring remote, that's even more important, because finding cultural alignment, making sure that people are in the right spirit is even harder when you're hiring remote. And that's the first base to make sure that you can grow that and grow the engagement as the team grows and while they're working on different time zones and by themselves. So we have a 5-step recruiting process for non-tech people and a 6-step recruiting process for tech people. And a lot of people tell us, like, are you like a 100 people company? We're like, no, but that's super important because we truly believe in the hire slow, fire fast. And in remote, that's even more important. Then we have a full onboarding process, a talent development process, a training process. We have daily habits that I'm going to discuss later on in the presentation that make sure that people are fully engaged regardless of where they are in the world. And finally, we also have a process of offboarding, whether it's positive or negative, and how you can still stay as a Veamler beyond being in the Veamler journey during your time with us. So going deeper into this, so when we're talking about the person, we look at them, like we look at the person, don't get me wrong, I'm going to say this like a product. So meaning that they're as important as the product of your company, more important. We believe great teams make great companies, not products. So having a clear plan for any Veamler in the company, regardless of where they are, is what makes us successful. So we have, as you can see on the left side of the screen, we call it the gatekeeper of the Veamly's culture and cult, right? Who's the Veamly talent manager, AKA the happiness officer I talked about. They're the enabler to make sure they fulfill their full potential regardless of where they are in the world. So we talk about their personal development, their career development, and their training cycle. Having this in place helps us have a clear process regardless of where the person is from or where they're sitting, and we can still track this online and virtually without having to be next to each other. So we have also programs, and so some of the programs are the wellness benefits. Even if we don't have a true budget, because we are all over the world, we always try to figure out, what's the best way to find something that doesn't cost us a lot as a company, but still that makes the Veamler feel good and part of the company, regardless of where they are. So whether they want to do like a workout or learn how to do salsa or anything that will make them feel good, right? And they can then come back and share it, and you can see how that impacts their mood and their behavior, even though they're not surrounded by their teammates wherever they're working. So these are the must-haves. Now, how do we take all that and we plug it in to the practices? And this is where I'm going to take more of my time, because this is really the tricky part and where people really tend to fail. Like they put the processes in place and then tend to fail because they don't take time to fully implement them. So one of the things that's really easy to implement is Gratitude Monday. Gratitude Monday is an all-company call that lasts about 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't take that much of your time, where you push your team to share what they're grateful for. So, and it's a virtual call because we're remote. So we all get on Zoom and we share, like today I'm grateful because the sun is out. It's been raining for a week. Or something about work. I've been, stuck on this thing for the whole past week and I finally figured it out. Or anything really, but that exercise of expressing gratitude really starts off the week very positive and brings the team closer together because they get to be very authentic and genuine with each other and very vulnerable. Then comes Meditation Wednesday. So Meditation Wednesday is also a 10 to 15 minute call, again on Zoom, because we use Zoom as a tool, but there are multiple alternatives, as you all know, like Hangouts and others, free options. So the Meditation Wednesday, meditation is obviously a very broad topic. And what we do for us is we chose to practice the mindfulness exercise, where every person shares something they're stressed about and something they look forward to. One tricky thing here I want to really insist on, that the nature of people is fear. So people feel because we're doing this in a work environment in the beginning, that it has to be work related. Or if something that I'm stressing about, I need to reassure management that it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not that important and it's gonna be fine, and that's not the whole point. So like we try to push them to say, this is a safe environment. This is not a place where you have to justify yourself or you have to, prove that if something is wrong, you're gonna fix it. This is a place for you to really get that pain off your chest and then balance it with something you're looking forward to so that you really feel good about continuing your week and realize that it's all about balance. It will never get perfect and it will never be always bad. It's all about having that sense of ownership, because that's really who we are as a culture, and feeling that regardless of what you do, you're always striving to do your best. And it's all about the intent behind it. So that's why we decided to implement this practice, so people really feel more engaged, feel that they're not alone in this, because when you're not in an office with everyone else, it's not that simple to share these kind of things. And sometimes when you're on the other side of the world, and like in South Korea, for instance, and you're working by yourself, you don't get that connection with the team. You don't get the same excitement. And when you have issues, you feel like that's the only thing you have going for you. So the other practice that is very, very key that we did from day one is the all company meeting. And we hear a lot about the all hands, right? So where, especially in larger companies, where the CEO shares things and it evolves and it grows. But the reason why we don't call it all hands, because it's not, all hands has this sound to it that's, it's always about work and about the results and about the objectives. For us, it's not about that. It's really about celebration. So every week we get together and every person has to share their team and work wins. Now, when you have a very big team, then you evolve and you do it by manager or by team. Like this week is going to be engineering sharing. Next week is going to be marketing. Next week is the week after is going to be people. If you have multiple cities of operation, or countries, then you do it by country. So there are different ways to iterate on this, and I'm happy to answer questions or give suggestions for people if they want to see how they can implement it in their own environment. So that's a very awesome moment for us, because we really, you can feel the difference when people are just smiling and it affects their mood in a very, very positive way. Then we have, we go over the business updates, right? So we use Trello, and we have an all company Trello board where we have the first list, we put each department. So you have product, marketing, IT, you have fundraising, anything really that concerns the company. And we label them all with different colors. And then every week there is a champion from every team that puts the top 3 things that were achieved that week, right? Regardless of what they are. It doesn't mean that they have to be, if we're talking about sales, it doesn't have to be closing. It could be like reached out to X prospects. We had this much engagement on a particular white paper, or whatever it is, you need to promote that culture of we still have done something, right? Regardless of how big it is. And so this kind of information, it helps us structure the way we share everything with everyone. and we connect with them. So even if you're an engineer working in South Korea or a marketing working in Tunisia, you still know what's happening at least once a week, and you can go back to that board at any time if you want to double check on something. Then we do a very important thing, which we call the knowledge series. So we take 10 minutes of that call, and then one person on the team is going to try to share something to teach us all. So if we are marketing, we're going to share, for example, how we do competitive analysis with engineering, because they have no idea how we do that. And that evolves every day. So we update them, we show them how we do it. Or if we're talking about, for example, the narrative, primitive, and enablers of a business. So we explain what that means, and then we get them engaged by making them guess things and say, okay, what do you think of this? What do you think the narrative of Facebook is, or of Twitter, or really making it an engaged exercise. So it's like where people really share as well their thoughts, and they feel super engaged. So finally, we do the Veamler social time, which is every Veamler, it rotates every week, has to prepare a presentation for 10 minutes where we get to know each other more. So the type of social presentation we had are different every week. So sometimes it's like one of the first ones we've ever done where our POM, happiness officer, made us take all of us the Myers-Briggs test, and she prepared a presentation about each one of us, our results, without naming us, right? Our main things, and then made everybody else guess who is who. So it's very interesting because you get to see how the team perceived every other person in the company. And for you as an individual as well, it's interesting to see how people perceived you or still do, right? So the conversation starts going, you're like, oh my God, that's what they think of me? Wow, I didn't know I gave that impression. Or, oh my God, that's amazing. I come across as this awesome person. Maybe I'm not that much. So it's a really cool one. And other ones, we've done dog breeds, different things like musicians, music, songs that relate to each of the Veamler. And recently we started switching more to questions. So like what type of superhero you are, or what type of villain you are, or which CEO do you identify with in the world if you were to run a company, and why? So even though it's a 10-minute presentation, it is so powerful because you get to know so much about your team, and it only brings them closer together. So it's really amazing. And the other part is we don't limit them. Like we say social time, but we don't say this is what you're supposed to present or this is what you're supposed to say. It's a free zone, and that's how you start trusting your team about really living to the culture, not going over any line. You promote diversity as well. You promote openness, and you promote conversation and dialogue, which is really super important for us. And in remote, even more, because people, again, don't get to talk to each other or engage with each other. So other one of our practices is the 1-minute yoga of laughter. That's what MYL stand for. And I put local because this is some of the things where you cannot sometimes take the same habits and implement them everywhere. And this is where I'm going to stop and talk a little bit about remote and what you mean by remote, because we have two types of remote. We have remote offices and we have remote people. So you have sometimes, in our case, we have both. So we have a remote office in Tunisia, and we have an office here in San Francisco, and you have people on the East Coast, and we have people in South Korea, so on their own. So we really have both of them. So for example, for the Meditation Wednesday, we do it as an all company, we do it virtually. For the 1-minute yoga of laughter, we do it locally in the offices. So, and it's simply 1 minute where everybody do some yoga of laughter, and then in the middle of the day, and it kind of re-energizes you and brings people together. So even though not everybody does it, the fact that people know in the company, oh, we could do these kind of things, and it's their decision if they want to implement it or not, makes them really even closer and more human with each other, and feel like it's work, but actually I could do life practices and I could be good, because you spend 90% of your job at work. And if you spend it on your own on the other side of the world or at the side of the country, it's even harder. So having these type of practices help you really get through the day, feel connected, feel even more into your company, connected to your company, to your vision, mission, core values, and truly practicing ownership. The 3-minute roll call also is a local thing. And what we call by roll call, what we mean, sorry, is it's a 3-minute morning habit where people start the day dancing, right? So we have different choreographies you can test, and it makes you really energized. We were doing this a lot, especially over the summer. Now we pause it a little bit, and we do it on special occasion when like there's people, teams visit each other, and we keep testing. So this is where I want to stop and say that not everything we start, we continue. We test, we iterate, we get feedback from the team and start over again. So that's what happened, for instance, for the social time. When we first started, as I said, we were doing like things like dog breeds, Myers-Briggs, songs to define every person. And then we did a survey and we saw how people reacted, like, do they want to change the content? Yes or no? Was there something offensive about it? Or anything really that can help you improve. And it's very important. So that's why, like, for example, for the dance, we stopped because we realized sometimes people don't have the same timing, but they still love it. So that's why we're trying to keep on bringing it back as whenever we can, so people can still have that effect of, I'm starting the day energized. So that's it from in terms of practices aspect of it. Now, let's talk about the engagement. All this is beautiful, you know, putting practices in place, doing the all company meeting, having all these things like my yoga of laughter, meditation Wednesday, gratitude Mondays, but it's still not enough. Even though for a lot of people it seems a lot, but it's not enough, because you do that and then you go and you're still sitting on your own. You're not talking to anyone, you're not interacting with anyone unless you need something like, can you send me this? Can we do that? So it's not enough. So how do you engage? Well, the classical team building, that's super important, because people, when they think of team building, they think of it as, oh, we're gonna have an activity and go bowling. That's not how we think of it. We try to think of exercises that always connect us to Veamly, right? And to our core values, our mission, our vision. So sometimes we will do like, you know, exercises like, you know, put a band on your eyes and try to walk your team, you know, through a path. You know, it's a very sophisticated exercise. Or sometimes we watch a movie like The Circle and say, half of the movie we stop and we start analyzing things. And what do you think of that? What do you think of this? And you get to know people versus when you just go for a happy hour or for a drink. It's good connections, but you don't really foster deep connection with people. And because we are remote, obviously we cannot go on happy hour. So what we do is we try to do things locally, of course, but also for the people who are not local, we try to do virtual moments. And I'm gonna talk in a second about a new implementation we did that's really changing things, which will help more people do team building moments without being next to each other. So, but what we did, however, not on the day-to-day, is at least we think we invented the concept of the global company days. So, which is pretty much a hackathon, but it's not really a hackathon. It's like for tech, we do it across the different departments. So we have the teams from all over the world, like dedicate 2 days of their time on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, don't do anything. Sometimes we make, like for example, the US team stay up at night, and sometimes we make the teams on the other side like stay up their night. So in terms of time zone, it's definitely exhausting. That's why we don't do it often. When we started, we were doing it every 2 months, and now we're moved it to every 6 months. But the all company days is a moment where we put objectives to achieve. So like we say, okay, we need to finish this feature, or we need to finish this marketing goal, this list, this white paper, whatever. But most importantly is the time where we share the accomplishment. Like, what have we done the past 2 months? Like, what happened in marketing? What happened in tech? What happened in people operations? And it's incredible how much we bond together as a team in these moments. Because the reality of it is, when we're running every day, we're always heads down, right? Sometimes the management team is strategizing and thinking about the big vision, but everybody else is so task driven that they forget everything we're achieving. And so we stop and we say, you know what? We need to do this all together as a team, regardless of where we are, right? So, and those days, every single time, our company changed after them. we either make a big discovery, right, about our product, our market, our team, our persona, our vision, culture, core values, or like something even smaller than that when we have an epiphany about someone, for instance. So really, really an amazing moment, and really definitely shifted the dynamic of our remote work. So the positive vibes. So the positive vibe is a channel on Slack. So on a daily basis, our happiness officer will send a quote of the day. And in the beginning, people like were reacting to it. And some of them even like were saying, oh, like the day doesn't happen, which happens rarely. Like they'd be like, where is it? We didn't get it today. Like, but they just passively read it. So recently, our happiness officer, she started engaging people. It's like, here's the quote of the day. What is yours? And what do you think? And so that's why like her role is super, super crucial, because sometimes, again, myself, like as the CEO, I get so crazy that I forget, right? Like to engage or ask that question. So she's there to make sure, like, you know, she's the gatekeeper of that engagement aspect of it. She makes sure that everybody engages and talk to each other and interacts always on a positive energy mode, positive vibes mode. So then we recently implemented Donut. And this is the part I talked about earlier, team building versus when you're not next to each other. So Donut is a really cool app, and there are similar other ones on Slack, where you put it on a channel and then look on all the members of that channel and see who doesn't interact with each other, and then we'll hit them up in a common message, say, hey, how about you schedule a coffee this week or a donut time so you can talk to each other. And the goal of that, first we make it optional. So we see that like we want people to be in the culture of engaging with each other. We don't want everything to be forceful from the company. We want to promote the culture of talk to each other. You're one team, be together. So we push it with some rituals, or we put in place the right tools to make them engage with each other when they need to. So, and then because we are remote, so what we did differently, instead of saying coffee donut, say you can have coffee across the screen and talk about something. And then you can share the selfie of your meeting on a channel, on the channel we have, which we call it buddy moments. We've done this without this bot before, where we had it as an exercise for 2 weeks in a row. We kept rotating people to meet with each other, but then we realized this way it's even better and more continuous for people to continuously engage with each other. So finally, we have also assignments. So one of the things, and I'm the one who does this the most, because I always like to have the input of the team, whoever they are, whether engineers, marketers, people, on anything we do. So if I see an interesting article and say, hey, how do you relate this to us? How about you each give your opinion about this? Or if we're trying to test out a tagline, I engage everyone and have them like share their opinion about it. Or if we see, for example, we're launching a new page, then we'll have everybody like, you know, try to do their own and do something different. So we see what they come up with. So these assignments are more business oriented, but the cool thing about it is you post it on a public channel, everybody sees it, everybody engaged, and it starts the conversation. And again, the happiness officer. So the things I did not talk about is one of the things she does that is not there is the continuous check-in. So she's there, she's literally watching everyone, whether they're next to her or virtually, right? Through the different tools, through, are they online at 3 in the morning, and which is not okay. So she makes sure they're really doing well with their work-life balance. So she's always checking in, doing the one-on-ones, making sure, analyzing, you know, like putting together internal tools even to track the happiness level of every person, which is incredible. And as a CEO to have that, like I have this dashboard where I can see this happiness, you know, level of everyone. And I know like, okay, we need to do something more for this person or for that person. Sometimes we check even personal things about them that I wouldn't know any other way, or the manager, that are affecting their life and we're not realizing because we're adding to it by work. So we create that balance because we don't have visibility, they're not sitting in front of us. So thanks to her, because of the process she has in place of checking in with everyone, we're able to track these kind of things. So I want to see if anyone has questions at this point. You can unmute yourself and ask questions. So anyone?
Hello?
Yes?
Hi. So thank you for everything you just shared, Emna. But I have a specific question about, like, for example, checking on people online. Do you have specific recommendations about how to deal with that? Because it's not obvious, like, not being there, seeing the person, like, for on-site people.
Thank you. And what's your name again? Sorry. Hello?
Suma.
Okay. Hi. So first, thank you. So yes, absolutely. Very, very good question. So again, I go back to the aspect of process and structure. So you need to schedule these check-in on a regular basis. So one of the structure part is to do it on a weekly basis, right? On a tracking mode. So like a 10-minute, even in a Slack conversation, it doesn't have to be a live conversation, to check in how they're doing. Is everything okay? If you feel any kind of flag, if the person is not that responsive or that engaged, that's when you trigger the actual one-on-one conversation. The other part is being very observant. Like I mentioned earlier, like checking if people, are posting something in the middle of the night. That's probably not good. It means they're not really doing well with a work-life balance. You don't want that. You don't want people to burn out. And with different time zones, it's hard to track, but you get that habit as you move to know really what time it is in what place. One thing that this makes me think of as well is as the team grows, right? One happiness officer is not enough anymore, because when you have 30 people, you're not going to remember all the time where this person sits at which time zone, etc. So that's why we have this roadmap of having a happiness ambassador in every team. It doesn't have to be the manager, because the manager sometimes, depending on the department, could be so swamped that they don't have the bandwidth to do that. So it could be a team lead or a senior person who has as a role to make sure to do the check-ins and follow the roadmap that the main happiness officer for the company put together, so they can make sure these habits are implemented, these rituals are implemented, and making sure that people are really engaged within their teams, but also with the whole company. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much.
All right, good. Any more questions? All right, so to summarize, again, culture is really a branding exercise. It's really super important to keep that in mind as it grows, as your team grow across the globe. It's very important to really have it in your everyday habits, whether it's things like the positive vibes channel, or putting emojis about your different values, or engaging the conversations by asking questions or giving assignments about something in particular. Documentation and process are key, and they're the core and they're the base of why we are succeeding at this, because we have a roadmap that we go back to and compare against every time. Putting rituals in place reminds people every day to exercise this type of engagement across the globe, but also it has a positive impact on them, like sharing your gratitude or doing the mindfulness exercise. And last but not least, the core role of having this happiness officer, because without them, I do not believe you can make this happen. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to share with you our secret sauce at Veamly on how to run remote teams. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions that I did not cover, and I look forward to connecting with every one of you very soon. Thank you.